Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Ontario Conservative MP Harold Albrecht grew up in a rural community in southwestern Ontario. The only child to go on to achieve a post-secondary degree. He studied dentistry and he practiced at home in Kitchener-Waterloo for over 25 years, also taking his talents to the third world where he helped people with little or no access to dental care. In 2006, he decided to throw his hat into the political ring, and he joins me now to talk all about life beyond politics. Harold Albrecht, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's wonderful to have you here.
Great to be here, Catherine. Thank you.
You know, you've had such an interesting past. And you haven't, so many politicians may start out as lawyers, others may be in business. You were a dentist and you were a pastor, and now you're in politics. It's an interesting path to take.
It's been a great journey.
Did you want to be a dentist from the time you were a kid, or did you have other plans?
I was about in grade 11 when I decided that dentistry was a career I would pursue, and I spoke to my guidance counselor about my idea. Mm-hmm. She affirmed me in every respect because of my marks and because of my personality. She felt that would be a good choice, and so I made my choices in terms of subject matter,
right.
Chemistry, biology, those areas which I enjoyed and did well in, and then went into dentistry.
So when you were a little kid, was there an expectation that you would go to university?
Actually, not at all. In fact, I'm one of seven, second youngest of 7 children, and I'm the only one in my family that has any post-secondary education. Right. So the expectation of post-secondary education was not placed on us at all. But we were all encouraged to reach our full potential. Mm-hmm. So when I did share with my dad that I felt dentistry was the area I was being led to, he affirmed me strongly.
That's really interesting. What did your parents do?
I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
I grew up on a dairy farm, mixed farm. As I said, 7 of us. Up in the morning at 6, milking cows. In the summer, going out to get the cows from the field and bringing them in for milking. And then during the day, always lots of chores to do, especially during harvest season. Mm-hmm. And what I enjoyed most about being on the farm, we grew up in an area where, and in an era when we used threshing machines as opposed to combines.
Right.
So there were 4 farmers that owned a threshing machine together, cooperatively.
Right.
And that threshing machine would make its way from farm to farm over the summer. And then the threshing machine also, along with that, went the workers. So we would go to other farms and help them with their harvest. They would come to ours, and it was just a great community time. And the whole idea of teamwork, team spirit, was so much a part of my growing up years. Getting a job done collectively, working hard, but then the satisfaction of that job done as a team is part of who I am.
When you would go to the other farms, would you stay there?
We didn't stay overnight. We were all close enough that we could just get back and forth, actually, by tractor on the roads.
Right.
But we ate our meals there, lunch and dinner there. They were more like dinner and dinner, big meals. Yeah. And that was part of the fun as well.
Yeah. You know, that's such those are the types of things that when people look back on their childhoods, that would be an ideal experience as a childhood, right? To feel that you grow up in a community that supports each other and that works together.
Right.
That's kind of what everyone hopes for them.
That whole community spirit spilled over into many areas of my life, but in terms of my own family being asked to participate in the jobs, mm-hmm. and it was work, not that it was hard work physically, but there were expectations, responsibilities placed on us. And I really do think that's a key factor in growing up, mm-hmm. and then accepting that responsibility as a teen and then as a young adult and on into adulthood.
Did you ever resent it?
Never. Never. I enjoyed I enjoyed my farm life. The aspect of having to be home after school as opposed to participating in sports, whether it was football or any of those, or basketball. Not that I'm athletic, but I wouldn't have had those opportunities to participate because of the expectation of being home. But no, I did not resent that at all. In fact, I look back at it now and think it was a great responsibility.
Right. And what were your parents like?
I could not have had a better dad and a better mom. My dad affirmed me. My dad was older when I was born. I think he was 48 when I was born.
Wow.
My mom was 40. They, even though they were older in terms of the generational thing, I never felt like they were a generation beyond me. We were like friends. They had high expectations of us. They were disciplinarians in the sense of expectations, but certainly no harshness at all. It was just an expectation, and we grew up with this common bond of feeling like we're part of something bigger here. This isn't just about me or about them. We were a team in every respect. So I could not be more thankful for the home that I was placed in.
Tell me about where you placed in the kid lineup. If your parents were older, were you the last?
I'm second youngest.
Second youngest.
Second youngest.
Okay, great. So you had a lot of mothers and fathers, frankly.
We had good interpersonal care that went both ways.
Yeah.
And even in school, I grew up in an area where we went to a one-room school. So all 8 grades of my elementary education were in a one-room school.
Yeah.
So I had the benefit as a grade 1 student of having the grade 8, grade 5s helping me with my reading, and then as we went up through the different grades, having the experience on the other end where we could now help the younger ones. And so again, that was a great team part. Yeah,
and I actually think that's a really interesting. I've heard people talk about the fact sometimes parents are concerned when their kids are put in a split class, like a 1-2. But when I have talked to people who went to schools, to one-room schools, and they felt that their educational experience was really very rich because they did have older kids helping them, and they were expected to help other kids themselves.
Right. There's that aspect of helping each other, but then there's the other aspect of when the teacher is doing a study for a grade that's 2 or 3 higher than yours, and there's things on the blackboard and she's teaching this, you pick up things that are beyond what you would normally have been exposed to if you were simply in that one-room setting with all grade 5s, for example.
Excellent point. You're absolutely right. You would be. I mean, it's just osmosis, basically.
Exactly.
But boy, would I ever not want to be that teacher.
Well, exactly. When you think of the preparation that was required
and
for the
patience.
Yes, exactly.
The patience in a one-room schoolhouse.
And then it was, in addition to the didactic part of the education, it's all of the yards as well. Like, so you're out for baseball. And we played sports from the moment it was, dry enough in the spring for baseball, and in the winters, we actually made our own hockey rink ourselves out in the schoolyard. Yeah, played. We called it hockey. It might not have been quite to the caliber of what we think of now.
So you make this decision to become a dentist in grade 11.
Correct.
And then you basically follow the path. Is that?
I did.
Pretty much. Right.
I followed the path, and I applied to what was then Waterloo Lutheran University, now Wilfrid Laurier, to the general science program, with the understanding that at that point you could apply to the dental faculty at University of Toronto after 1 year of a general science degree. And when I was partway through that year, one of my science professors sort of took me aside, and he said, "Harold, I understand that your goal is dentistry. I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but the chances of getting in are very slim, and in fact, almost impossible after 1 year of science. You may get in after a full degree, a Bachelor of Science degree, but just to keep your expectations realistic." And so I accepted that, and I actually had paid my deposit from my second year into Waterloo Lutheran in the general science program, and about 3 days after I had paid my deposit, I got my acceptance letter from the University of Toronto into the Faculty of Dentistry, and I was on cloud 9.
I bet you were. What an achievement.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then to be accepted from a rural area, going to Toronto, another huge step.
What was it like?
Well, I remember walking the streets of Toronto and thinking, okay, I've got to find a place to live here. And I knew my budget was very limited. My mom and dad were not well off. In fact, I remember my growing up years wearing lots of hand-me-down clothes. Yeah. And I didn't resent that at all. I never thought about it. Right. But I knew my budget was limited. So I'm walking through Chinatown, and I approached a number of houses. I finally found a place in Chinatown, rented a third-floor room for $9 a week. And that was, it was great.
You had, a bed?
All I had was a bed and a table and a chair. And in fact, it got so cold in that room some winter nights that I would literally put my toaster under the chair, use a stick to prop the popper down, and stay warm. That's the truth.
You're
Now, I did
kidding.
have to pay quite a...
Did you sit on the chair?
I sat on the chair.
With the toaster?
Exactly. And the
Oh,
heat.
my goodness. Yeah, that's not a fire hazard.
Well, no, it wasn't. I didn't have to do that every night, but my kids are sick of that story, so...
But truly.
It's part of my journey.
Really?
And then a lot of there was about 6 rooms on the floor.
Yeah.
We shared a kitchen and a bathroom. So I ate a lot of rice that year.
You did
bought rice in big bags.
Yeah.
And I would take some food from home. My mom would often send me, we did all our own gardening, raised our own produce. So I would take a frozen package of peas or a couple jars of peaches along. And I did well. It was okay.
You did, eh? Did you have days when you went hungry?
Not at all. No, I never went hungry. You can tell I'm I'm not likely to go hungry.
So what was it like, though, also to transition from a rural, supportive community environment to a really big city, which at many points for a lot of people can be a big city can be a very cold place to be, and not toaster cold, but
right.
You know.
Well, one of the things that I really was blessed by is the fact that I had a job back in Kitchener. So I worked as a medical attendant at KW Hospital. So I was home every weekend.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't isolated for the long term.
Right.
And I also had a girlfriend back home, which brought me back home as well.
Yeah.
But the job back home, I would often do 2, 3, sometimes 4 shifts a week on the weekend, working at KW Hospital. So I still kept a real close connection to my home community. And when I was home on the weekends, still lived with my parents.
Right.
So it was, I sort of had the best of both worlds, and maybe I was able to transition rather gradually into that more big city mode. But I never felt overwhelmed by the big city. We developed a very close-knit group quickly. There was 125 students in my first year dental class. It's a large class, so you don't get to know all of the students, but we get to know the ones that are closest in alphabet.
Okay.
So the A's and the B's, I got to know quite well, and we did things together. I had good relationships.
What were you doing at the hospital?
I was a medical attendant, or you may call it orderly.
Okay.
And back in those days, the medical attendants also served as ambulance attendants. So if you were working on a medical floor, you might be paged to go down and go on an ambulance call as well. Now, we didn't have near the training that ambulance EMS people have today. So when I look back, it's like, wow, I'm glad nothing ever major that we had to deal with.
Did you have to deal with serious issues?
Well, there were issues, severe accidents. I remember the one case we came into a home where a mother had given birth, almost spontaneously, and dealing with those kinds of things. But I was never the senior person on the ambulance crew. We were always the extra attendant.
Right.
So I was able to, and looking back at it, working with patients in those medical settings, doing some tasks, if I can call them that were not the most pleasant, but I can honestly say that if I ever get sick of politics or if I'm de-elected, I could easily go back and become a medical attendant again. I thoroughly enjoyed the people contact and the personal care of working in the hospital setting.
So did you decide to go home to start a practice or to join a practice?
I always intended to go back to the Kitchener area to start my practice. And the year prior to my graduation, I think there were 6 or 8 new dentists settled in Kitchener. So our public health instructor, he sort of does the demographics, and he discouraged anyone from settling in the Kitchener area because of oversaturation of the marketplace. But I had made up my mind that I wanted to live in Kitchener area, and whether or not I was super busy really wasn't important. I set up a practice there on my own in 1973 and practiced there for almost 27 years, just a few months short of 27 years, and those were great years. I didn't leave dentistry because I wasn't enjoying dentistry.
Right. Now I want to get to why you left dentistry in a second, but I want to also talk about your family. So at what stage did you and how did you meet your wife? Okay.
I met Betty actually at church.
Yeah.
Both attended the same church. We lived about 5 miles from each other. Started dating her when I was 16.
Yes. 16?
I was
Oh
16.
my goodness.
She was 14.
So is this the girlfriend you were talking about who was back at home when you were...
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, she was 14.
Yeah. Now, when I say dating, it wasn't the sense of
no.
going out alone. We were going to church group events and youth activities and that sort of thing. But so I dated her. We married when I was 21.
Yeah.
She was 19, and I was in my second year of dental school at that time.
Wow.
And
did she move with you to Toronto?
Yes, we lived in Toronto, married student residence.
Yeah.
She continued her education at Centennial College in medical secretarial work, and then was employed at Princess Margaret Hospital until I graduated.
And then did she go to work with you in your office?
No, she did not feel dentistry was her calling.
Okay.
So when we moved back to the Kitchener area, she actually did not go back to work. We had our first child about that time, 1974, Gavin, and so from that point on, she stayed home as a working mom.
Yeah.
And and I look back at that with a lot of gratefulness.
Yeah.
The investment that she poured into my kids, into my family, I mean, I am eternally grateful for the kind of investment that she placed into them. And she was very involved in the community. She was involved in the school. She would go to the school and volunteer for days at a time, like not all day, but many days, and involved in parent-teacher things and other volunteer activities in the community. So she was able to invest in their lives, and she was able to get to every single sports event, as was I. Because of being a dentist, I had the flexibility to cancel my patients on a Friday afternoon or whatever and get to their football games. So I could not be more thankful for those opportunities that we had to build into the lives of our kids. And even today, they will express their thanks for the fact that we were able to be there.
How many kids do you have?
We have 3 children.
All right.
And each of them have 3. So I have 9 grandchildren.
Oh, do you really?
Yes.
Goodness.
It's
I know, it's a lot of grandchildren.
It's the best, yeah.
Wow.
From age 11 down to 10 months.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is. Oh. It's the best time of life.
Yes,
no question.
I've heard that widely. No, many, in fact, all grandparents.
Well, and I think any grandparent would agree with that.
I think you're right. So tell me then, to get back to your transition out of dentistry, you decided to become a pastor.
Correct. I was always very involved in my church, both locally, nationally, and even internationally. I did a number of short-term mission trips. And because of that involvement, administratively and teaching Sunday school, those kinds of things, the leader of our Canadian denomination approached us at one point and said, we would like you to consider planting another church within the Kitchener area. Would you consider that, doing it bivocationally, being a dentist and a pastor?
Yeah.
And after a few months of thinking about it, praying about it, asking for counsel of people that we trusted, we decided we would give it a try.
Wow.
And that was a huge decision.
A huge one.
Fear of failure was pretty big on my mind. But we decided to do it, and after a few months it became evident that I was not able to focus in 2 different directions, doing both dentistry and ministry. And I felt very clearly led to discontinue dental practice completely, and then went into ministry full-time.
Wow. And what was that like?
Well, it was challenging in the sense that you're bringing people together from different backgrounds. Many of them don't have any church background at all. But the rewards are incredible. When
like
you see,
what?
When you see a person that has a very difficult past, maybe a single mom, and they come to you for counsel or for help, and you're able to lead them to spiritual resources that give them the confidence to move ahead, take that next step. Or you're working with a couple that may be struggling in their relationship, and you find the resources that they need to work through their differences. And then you walk into a church on Sunday morning, and you see that couple or those kids leaning up against their dad in a church service. There's nothing like the feeling of knowing that you've been a little part. And I don't want to take all the credit for this, because it's a team all the way.
Right.
There was a team around me. Betty and I didn't do it alone. But the satisfaction of that is probably the high point of my week, even now.
Yeah.
Okay, walking in and seeing a group of people that may not have had any spiritual journey 10 years ago, but today they're involved in church leadership. They're reaching out into the community, and they're helping others. It's sort of the cycle continuing.
You've taken that community approach in pretty much every aspect of your life. You have traveled extensively in the third world using your dentistry skills to help others. Why is that important to you?
I don't think of it as so much as being important to me as it's just part of our who we are.
Yeah.
We have been.
But a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of people wouldn't take the time.
Maybe not. But for me, it was just a matter of extending care beyond the immediate. So you can care for your neighbors, you can care for people maybe in the next town or city. But there's also this element where people in many of the developing countries have almost zero access to healthcare services. And so the Christian Medical Dental Society went into communities, many of them remote, rural communities, where people might not have access to dental service. In my case, it was dental. We traveled with teams that did optometry and medical and dental. But my focus was dental. So we would set up chairs literally under a tree outside on a kitchen chair. And people would come and many times they would have diseased teeth that should have been treated years ago. And most often, simply roots left, just all decayed except roots. So 90%, more than that, 90% of the work that we did was surgical, removing diseased and broken down teeth, allowing that patient to at least be free of pain. We weren't there long enough, we didn't have the resources to do restorative work, nor would they have been able to maintain that.
Right.
But we were offering basic services that they wouldn't have been able to access otherwise. So it's just a matter of extending our care to the larger human family.
How did that change your impression of the global community in which we live?
I'm glad you asked that, Catherine, because I would come back feeling, wow, those people are so patient, they're so stoic. They would line up, they would walk for miles, sometimes half a day, to get to where we were set up. Wait in line for another half day for their dental treatment. We would treat them in very basic, primitive circumstances, and they were so grateful. I would come back, and circumstances would sometimes mean that I might have been 5, 10, 15 minutes late with the next patient because of a complication I had encountered on a previous patient. And in North America, we're so impatient. So people would complain about waiting extra 10, 15 minutes. Were there, they had all day, and they were so grateful. So it changed my perception in terms of we are so blessed in Canada. We can complain about healthcare services, but we have it very good in Canada. I think every Canadian should take 2, 3, 4 weeks or more and spend it in a remote area of a developing country, not at a resort. I mean, I've done both.
Sure.
But it's in those remote areas where people are living in very, very difficult circumstances where you can really get the feel for them. Now, having said that, they're in difficult circumstances, but by and large, these are very joyful people. They're happy people. They're socially connected to each other, and there's a sense of joy.
So what led you to politics then? You've had a rich life full of experiences already. What led you to politics? I
think it was just another avenue to be able to serve. Through my life, I've tried to serve. So I was serving in dentistry, I was serving in pastoral ministry, and in 2005, a number of people from my local riding, Kitchener-Conestoga, approached me and said, there's a nomination meeting coming up in May. There are 5 others running for the nomination for the Conservative Party. We'd like you to put your hat in the ring. So I thought about it again and said, okay, I'll put my hat in the ring. I'm enjoying pastoral ministry. If I'm not to be the candidate, the door will close quickly and I'll get on with my life.
Had you thought about what the potential consequences would be?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I didn't enter it thinking I would lose. I mean, you don't do that to lose, obviously.
Right.
And I didn't do it thinking I'm not going to give it a good effort.
Right.
I did give it a strong effort. And history says
paid off.
I won the nomination. I went on to win the election. But I think I can say honestly that my identity is not wrapped up in this job. I enjoy serving. One of the best parts of my job as a member of Parliament is serving my constituents back in Kitchener-Conestoga, whether that's immigration issues or EI, or simply being at some of the public events that are held there, driven by volunteers. This is part of what energizes me.
So when you actually ended up in Ottawa, how did that change your life?
Well, obviously you have to relocate. So right. Betty and I did we have an apartment here. Have an apartment here. I still do.
Yeah.
The adjustment there again in terms of everything's new. So you come into the House of Commons that first day and it's like overwhelming.
Yeah.
The orientation sessions were overwhelming. All of this information being given to you. In fact, I've often said since I wish we had the orientation sessions and then repeated them about 4 months later when it started to make sense.
That's a good way to look at it.
Because it was all theory at the first part.
Sure.
But, it's people were so patient. And my colleagues who had been here for a number of terms before treated me like I was one of them. They were more than helpful in helping me find access to services or even finding the washrooms.
Sure.
That's
a pretty key one.
There are so many things here on the Hill that we have a great team. We have a great team to work with. So I never felt overwhelmed in that sense.
Right.
Obviously in awe of my responsibilities and the people I'm working with.
Yeah.
But I never felt like, I can't do this. I just one day at a time.
Your life changed dramatically after the night of your reelection, the most recent reelection, when your wife succumbed to a massive health issue.
Bleeding in the brain, yes.
Yeah, and she died 2 days later.
Correct.
That must have made you question pretty much everything in your life at an already emotional time.
Those first 2 days, 2 or 3 days, maybe longer, it's sort of a fog looking back. Yeah, no question about it. You begin to question, should I continue? Why am I doing this? To be honest, I didn't want to wake up those first couple of days. I wasn't afraid that I was going to do something to make that happen by any means, but there was just a sense of lack of, my life revolved around Betty. We had been married for 7 weeks, less than 40 years. But examining the whole situation and trying to take stock of it, I realized that if I were to ask Betty, what should I do, she would say, keep doing what you're doing, and she'd have cheered me on. So along with that perception in my heart and my brain, and the encouragement of my kids, my extended family, my church family, my whole community. And let's face it, I had just won the election that night, and she was actually watching the results with me when she suddenly had a headache. And she knew that I was winning. And the strong mandate that I received from my constituency certainly affirmed the fact that I should continue this. So I'm not going to project long-term into the future. At this point, I can honestly say I absolutely enjoy my job. Do I enjoy it as much as I did before? No, I never will.
Yeah.
But I am not...
Because she came with you, didn't she?
She was here with me 90% or more of the time. And she was very involved in the Parliamentary Spouses Association, both the largest association and the Conservative Spouses Association. She had developed strong relationships with spouses of MPs and also spouses of ambassadors. In fact, one of the things that I miss about not having her here is her ability to connect with spouses of ambassadors and or members of Parliament. And her friendship with those people often led to me being fortunate one to get in on that friendship. And we've had ambassadors in our home. We've been in ambassadors' homes because of Betty's introduction to their spouse. So, yeah, it was a team effort all the way. The last 6 months have been difficult. I won't try to kid anybody about that. I still shed lots of tears, but I am not in despair. My faith has been my foundation. My church family's been there for me. My biological family's been incredible. I could not be more proud of my kids and the broader constituency. And even here in Ottawa, colleagues of all stripes have surrounded me, and I can't go a day without someone just saying, hey, how are you doing? Thinking about you. Many of them will add, praying for you. And unless you've been in that situation, you have no idea how helpful that is, and that support is incredibly important. So
well, I'm
so grateful.
She would be very proud.
Well, I think I sense that she's cheering us on.
I'm sure she is. I really appreciate that you would take the time to be here and to share your story. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you.
Well, it's been an honor to be here, and like I said, I could not be more thankful for the job I have, because I don't consider it a job. Sometimes I think, wow, I'm getting paid for this. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
33 million Canadians, struggling or thriving in the world's most diverse cities, living on the edge of a boundless yet fragile wilderness, and making a life in all those places in between. But all of our 33 million needs, even our hopes and dreams, are decided